and welcome to another wonderful talk at the Positive Future for Health podcast. And tonight we have the amazing Diane Mitchell, who's going to be talking about free your mind. And I thought it would be so important to bring her on to the podcast because I was just saying off camera that I've been a therapist for many years, and so many times, 80% of times, people say, I'm an overthinker. I'm very analytical. I'm all in my head. I've got too much going on in my mind. I can't focus. I can't meditate or something. And it happens on a very frequent basis that I hear this from people. And so where did I hear about Diane? I think I think we met on Facebook. I think we got chatting on Facebook somewhere,
We
and
did.
we did. And then eventually I came onto one of your incredible events. I mean, Diane is an absolute powerhouse. She's just got the endless energy, putting these
Yeah.
incredible healing health events together. And I did a talk at one of these events, and of course I was exhibiting and talking about pain free and everything. It's just so encouraging, so dynamic, and bringing all these different natural health methods, people all together, and sharing it with the public. And then we were on the health panel talking about different issues and elements of health. So, Diane, before we get started on Free Your Mind, how did you get into all of this? What made you get into the world of natural health? Who are you?
Okay. Well, my name is Diane, and thank you. First of all, thanks, Althea, for inviting me onto your fabulous podcast this evening. I've watched several of them, and I think they're just incredible. And it's a brilliant brief that you're bringing out to the world. And welcome to everyone here this evening, and who's going to be listening to the replay as well. I originate from Yorkshire in the north of England, but technically, I've not sort of lived there since pre 2000. Lived overseas for years, and I actually migrated to Australia where I thought I was going to live a semi-retired life from being addicted to work. Excuse me. And soon after arriving there, I found myself starting a new business, and it was a healing business, but nothing like what I have today. And propel quite a few years forward, I realised that although I thought my initial journey to Australia was to semi-retire and live on the beach, and I did have an incredible life there, but it turned out that I went there to heal my life. So you've just asked me, Althea, how did I get into well-being? I'd already created a business of sorts of how to help people heal their lives through colour, fragrances, light, more of a holistic spiritual approach and a general approach to introducing people to holistic approaches for healing their own life. But in 2006, I was given 12 weeks to live, and the only conventional medicine that I was offered to help, not even heal because I was given a deadline, but the only thing on offer was a full neck dissection, which would have been the removal of my full voice box. And I found that as soon as I was given that prognosis, an inner shift took place with me. It was like a complete reset from here downwards. So the reason why my talk tonight is called Free Your Mind is because in that moment, my mind exploded. It was like a dustbin that just exploded, and I could see everything in front of me. But from here downwards, I just experienced this complete peace and tranquility. And I remembered looking down thinking, what on earth has happened? And I remembered looking out and upward thinking, wow, that's the last 41 years of my life that I'm looking at. And that's what I refer to now as unfinished business. But what had happened within me was a total realignment of my truth. And I also had this voice that emerged saying that I wasn't going to die. And it just felt, it didn't sound, it just felt so real and so true. I just thought, I'll take that. And I believed it to be true. So I just stayed with it. And I remained resolute throughout the whole of that experience that I was going to be okay. And I say resolute because I certainly wasn't resistant. I was actually open to someone changing my mind. But inside, I just felt as though I was going to live, particularly for that stage in my life. So that was
So
18 years ago.
you were into all natural things already. You're already teaching and helping people.
Mm,
And what was all
well,
that
and
about?
I've,
What happened then? So there you were facing 6 weeks
yeah,
of try
well,
and
12
operation
weeks to live. And I
and
did have a healing business, but every part of me, given a prognosis like that, it is a life-changing event. And I realized at that moment that literally everything by my name just fell away. How I'd lived my life, even although I lived holistically, I've always been involved in holistic products and services and therapies. That was always my way. But everything as I knew it, my reality just sort of fell away. And it was almost like there was a blank jigsaw and something new was about to emerge. I'd no idea what that was. I'd no idea what it was going to be or what was going to happen. I was just in that mode of, I know I'm going to survive. They're telling me I'm not. My head's saying, oh, you might not. But inside, I just knew I was. So over the coming weeks, what happened? I sold.
in a knowing, isn't it? I mean,
It
because
was.
some people get diagnoses like that, and it sends them down the hill, and it's
Oh,
like
they
it's a
believe it.
exactly,
They
exactly.
believe it. Mm. And the irony in this is one of my first thoughts, and I can still remember the chain of thoughts that I had crystal clear. A couple of decades before that, my mother passed away with cancer and she was given 6 weeks to live. And the moment they told her that, she believed them and she went downhill. And I remember one of my first thoughts was, I thought, I wonder if the residue of her disease has actually slipped into my body. And the other thought backed up to that was she believed what they told her. And as a consequence to that, she went into their framework and all what they wanted to do and what they did do, which didn't bring a pleasant ending of life because we're all going to die, and I believe in good endings, but she believed them and that was her fate. And I remember sat there looking at my doctor and I just thought that was her fate, but it's not going to be mine, and something's happened here. And I didn't understand it at the time neither. This inner shift, this knowing, this almost voice-like feeling thought, and it is called a feeling thought. I'd no idea about all of this then, but I just thought it felt right, and it just really positioned me with my feet solid on the ground. And I found that over the next couple of weeks, even although I was put into my oncology team and they recommended radical surgery, which I signed for because I was of the rationale I can live without a voice box, and I'll find other ways to communicate.
You're
So
amazing.
I signed for that operation. Yeah. And in that, I
Oh, you
actually
need a
thought,
voice box.
yeah, who needs a voice box? But for me, I just thought we have sign language, we have other ways, and they did
You're
say I would have a
amazing.
breathing hole.
I went through a study stage of studying the face, and you've got this. It's like a square face under your chin, and I always think business people. When I see people, well, you're an incredible business person, and I got a friend whose sort of face is very similar to yours, and she was looking at a wheelchair, and she says, "Well, I'll be the token disabled person in the office," and just sort of get on with it then.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I
Amazing.
think it's the resilience within that, isn't it? And I suppose your survival instinct kicks in.
Yeah.
I was taught or led to survive my own life and myself from a very young age. And I mean a very, very young age. I was the youngest of six. And I'm 60 in a couple of weeks. So you can imagine back then, we didn't even have the resources and the psychological support and emotional support back then that we have in families now. And so it was basically survival. And I was taught some survival techniques within that. And yeah, it was an amazing, and it served me well because that was the first time to it was the first time really my mortality had been challenged. So my survival rate just kicked in, and that kicked in through, I suppose, resilience. And you talk about,
Is it like a sort of shock way when that doctor's sitting in front of you, he says 12 weeks or 6 weeks, whatever, you've got this thing and we're going to chop, chop, chop in 6 weeks. Is it like a stunned kind of, because of course we're not just physical, are we? We're emotions, we're spiritual, we're thoughts, we're everything.
Mm.
And I'm
Mm.
wondering, is it was it like an inner knowing? Because I know when I had my baby, my first baby, he was it turns out everything was fine. And I'd
Mm.
also been a reflexologist for many years. So I I knew that nearly 9 out of 10 mothers knew what was going on inside, whether it was going to go wrong or not. And when I came to my moment, and the midwife wanted to do check, check, scan, scan, I thought, hang on a minute. I went inside and I thought, do I feel good? How does it feel? Because I knew I had 20 years of reflexology under my belt. I knew that every single woman just about knew what was going to happen to her. And I felt into my baby and into my body and I thought, it feels good. It feels fine. I don't feel anything. And every single one of those women said, I knew there was a problem and I couldn't
Mm.
feel anything. And it turns out we had a bit of a complication, but it was fine. So that inner
Mm.
knowing, that every cell, you're connected to every cell, isn't
Mm.
it? Um,
Mm.
is it
Yeah,
spiritual
and
as well, or
I, I believe it is. I mean, we have every cell in our body, and every cell has its own memory, and every cell will serve us in what serves as positive and what serves as negative. It's all stored in the memory. Like now, I'm looking into this camera and I'm seeing other people on this call, and I'm seeing some screens that are closed off for their own purposes. But then beyond my screen, I've got other computers, I've got lights, I've got a wall, there's other furniture in my office, and my brain is taking absolutely everything in. So it's storing all of that activity in the cells. So that's on a visual sense. And then we're feeling things. And then we have these other patterns in our world called emotions. So the brain is computing all of that, and the cells are taking all that information from what we're seeing, what we're feeling, and what the emotional charge around that is. And it's storing it somewhere within our bodies, within all those cells. So you talked about having a
intelligence?
knowing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's every cell has an intelligence, isn't it?
Yeah. Mm.
An inner
It has its
knowing.
own brain. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it will serve up here's the thing, it will serve up what's right for us, and it'll also flag up things that we need to be cautious of. But so I'm going to take you through an exercise this evening of the three main brains that we've got and how to utilize them and get clear on them, which takes practice. So the recording will be really useful to everyone. But when you are utilizing the three brains and you understand the order of what information is coming into your body through what we're seeing, what we're hearing, and also the emotions and feelings, if that's scrambled, that process within us is scrambled, our cells can flag up a message that may be warning us of something or to be cautious. Like in your instance, Althea, you're in hospital about to give birth and you thought, I'll just go within and check. But if we're thinking, I've got this funny feeling inside my tummy, and we're used to that funny feeling, but it being a nervous, negative thing, we can automatically think it's something that's not going to serve us in a positive way. But the nervousness may also be your gut, your intuitive, which is the seat of your soul, just trying to send you a message to communicate with you, and the messages, the stories that our minds tell us, with enough scientific information now to know that the stories of the mind only serve up 0.2% correct, 0.2% truth to us
Oh
as
my gosh.
individuals. Yeah,
Point two. Gosh.
0.2, whereas our soul brain, which is our gut brain, that is the seat of our soul, that's where our intuition is, this is where our knowing is, that serves up 99.8% truth. So
Wow.
when we learn to communicate with that and with our emotional brain and the thinking brain, but we put them in the order of what's going to serve us correctly and to be able to identify what's right for us, there's no second guessing. And when we get these jitters in our tummy, we know whether it's a positively serving jitter or whether it's something we need to be cautious of.
And
But
it's the
like everything
feeling,
else, it takes
the
time.
feelings, how do you know you're following the right, if it's right for you? What does it feel like? It feels good, or it feels bad, or it feels so your feelings. What do you think
Well, they're
about that?
called feeling thoughts. And as we go through this process, so initially, and I'll take you through this, but initially, you just make contact with your gut brain. So your gut brain lives directly underneath your belly button. Okay, so we've got three main brains. The first one, which is what I call the king brain, is the gut brain, and that's where our feelings live. That's where they emerge from. This is what we call our knowing, our sensing, our intuitive brain, and it's the seat of the soul. So if you want to connect with it, you can do it now. You could just put your hand, yep, Brigitte's done that. Just pop the flat of your hand underneath your navel on your belly area. And what you're creating is a whole circuit, that electrical conduit. So, but by placing it on your gut brain on purpose, it knows that you've come home to the seat of your soul on purpose. And you can just wiggle your hand a little bit and you can talk to it silently or out loud and just thank it. When you first return home to it, thank it for being patient, for you coming back home to yourself, and there's ways that you can ask it questions as well to learn to start communicating with it effectively. Because if I have two stores to shop in, and if you guys are given two stores to shop in, and one will, whatever you purchase, it's only going to give you a product that serves you 0.2%, right? So say if you were buying a piece of clothing and the clothing just was meh, and it was only looking 0.2% good, but yet you went to the store next door, and no matter what you purchase from that store, it's going to look 99.8% true to you. It's going to suit you 99.8%. But yet you paid the same price in either store. So you pay the price for listening to 0.2% or 99.8%. We initially pay the same price, but in the long run, we pay a deeper price, because when we don't
Mm,
listen to our soul, that's when it
mm.
catches us out at
That's the
when
thing,
we
isn't
can
it?
be in critical situations. Yeah.
Exactly. And if you don't, I say it's a pain is a message. It wants to be heard. And I mean, I was in a relationship for a long time. My gut was screaming at me.
Yeah.
Did I listen? No.
Yeah. Me too.
And, and did you too? And then I got fibroids from that. And I know I can feel it. When I feel into my fibroids, I feel anxiety and anxiousness and contraction and tension. And so if you don't listen to your own inner guidance, and it's there all the time, it's so strong, 99%. What is it? I suppose it's free will, isn't it? Why do
Well,
we override that's very clear 99% guidance?
well, why do we override it? Many people don't know it's there. Okay. And the other thing is, in the Western world, we're taught to think. I mean, I remember as a child, and this is what we call learnt behavior, all within the formative years of mainly up to the age of 7. I was, as much as I were in a lovely environment in my family home, it was chaos and carnage as well sometimes. And if either of my parents got fraught with me, they'd say, just think for yourself. Go away and think about it. So we're programmed to think, 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 think. You're in schools where they're telling you to think all the time. And because this is our thinking brain, that's the first place that we're actually trained to go to for our
Mm,
thoughts. And because what we hear our minds say to us, because we hear that inside our head, we actually believe that it belongs to us. So whilst the mind is an organ
yeah.
and it's part of us, it's not all of us, is it? It's just one part of us.
It is that exactly. Just on that point, that we believe it because it's an experience we're having. The thoughts are not
Mhm.
real. I mean, of course, they're real in a way, but they are not. You can change them. It's not. It's an experience we're having. We're experiencing thought. We're experiencing emotion. We're experiencing whatever life situation is going on, and you can change it. You really do have that power. Gosh, so when did all this come about, this knowledge? Did you get all this knowledge trained up in the
all
think?
this all this knowledge came after my 12 being given 12 weeks to live, because when I had this inner shift, and you asked me what that felt like. It just felt like the easiest way to describe it was, and that would be my cells, because soon after this experience, I became really present. And I didn't even know what that was for probably about a year after. And I just lived in presence, what became really annoying in the end, because it's like you're witnessing everything rather than being inside your own life and living it naturally. But this feeling that emerged, it was almost like a jigsaw with pieces turned upside down and some pieces the wrong way. And in a split second of being given 12 weeks to live, it was like every piece of the jigsaw just fitted into place. And that was my cellular truth as I know it now. So
And
that's the best. Pardon?
thank you, Diane. And Brechia, she's saying, and then there's also the effect of trauma going from feeling to thinking.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And well, we have everything, like I mentioned, everything that happens to us is stored in our memory, in our cellular memory. So when it comes out, when it comes out, it can actually cause more trauma if it's left to ruminate for long periods of time. So this is where professional help can come in, like the work that Althea does for the pain-free method. The work that I do is called Change Your Mind, Change Your Life. So it's about rewriting the priority of that cellular story and the cellular stories, because once the feeling of the trauma goes up to the thinking brain just takes over. And it takes over because this is naturally plugged in to negative hormones. So it's telling us the difficulties and that we're going to be stuck in this loop, and perhaps it's our fault, we're not good enough, we've not got the strength to regain a sense of control over what it is that's getting in our way. But
And
that's not us. That's how the mind is programmed.
Brechia says also when it's multi-layered as well.
Yeah. And breaking through these layers. Just let me make sure I've not missed anything in the chat when it's
Yeah,
multi-layered. Yeah,
shall I,
exactly.
I'll leave you to have a look at the chat, Diane, shall I? I don't want to
I've
interrupt
just
your
seen it.
flow.
Yeah, I've just seen it. And I will say as well, I'll drop my details in this chat box before we leave tonight. So if anybody wants to book a personal one-to-one complimentary consultation, feel free. There's no obligation with that. But if you want to discuss that. But there's multi-layers to everyone. If you imagine yourself as an onion, and life happens to us, so it adds more layers. And as we start working through things, however swift or however long it can take, particularly in talk therapies, it can take longer, where we're peeling back these layers of us as a human, in metaphor as an onion, that we're getting to the core sense of who we are, and finding a place for traumas and experiences that's happened to us in our lives. It can take a long, long time for some people, and other people can power through it. And that's what makes us all unique
Yeah.
and different. But my quest is working at a cellular level, I think, is a lot more harmonious than talking through everything all the time. And I think you'll agree with that, Althea, won't you? It's the
Yeah.
holistic approach that we can
Yes.
bypass the thinking brain and go more of a deeper level to our
Yeah.
soul that will serve us in the purpose in which it's meant to do.
Exactly. And I think that's a really important aspect of healing. Otherwise, we just believe the things in our heads and we can go down a jolly old line of multiple lines of inquiry and it doesn't serve us. And of course, what happens, your body will reflect what's going on in your head, or your
Mm.
emotions will reflect what's going on in your head. So if you're stressed and wound up and analytical it's not, it doesn't feel good, there's a lot of negativity maybe or something,
Mm.
or difficult stories, your body will be
Mm.
reflecting all of that. And then you're going to be reflecting that outwardly. So anybody around you and your life
We'll
around
feel
you
it.
will feel it, will reflect that back to you too. So yeah,
Mm.
really important to hone in. So how do you do this, Diane? What would you do with somebody? How does
Well,
it?
just I'll take you through an experience in a moment. But first of all, I'd just like to say every thought that we have, because we're, as a human being, we're an electrical conduit, we're an electrical circuit. But every single thought that we have, it sends a message down to the body. Okay. Now we've got three brains within our body. We've got the gut brain, what lives just underneath the navel area. Then we've got the emotional brain, which is our heart space, in the heart and around the heart. That's the home of all of our emotions. Then we've got the thinking brain. So every single thought that we have, it sends a signal to the body. And depending on where you are with your emotions, it might land there and you might feel it in the heart space. Sometimes when we have a powerful thought, whether it serves as negative or positive, we can tell that our breathing has changed and that the heart rate has changed. And it may be that the electrical signal just lands there, it can't get any further. And I'm not saying nothing's possible, anything's possible to be able to open up all the three brains. And I'm going to take you into that experience. But here's the thing as well, if the electrical signal manages to reach down into the gut brain, it may be that you've not connected with your own intuition, you've not been listening to your intuition, or you've not been able to take on the messages that your body is sending you because the thinking brain has been speaking so loud and dominant. And perhaps you've not known any different and you've done what you were trained to do. Like me in my early years, I was trained to think. So I'd get this feeling, I'd think, oh no, listen to what my mind's saying. So when this is the dominating factor, it can take longer to train our gut brain. And when the signal is sent down and it reaches there, you might get a sensation, a fluttering or a heat or a pain or a digging pressure, something in your belly. But depending on your previous way that you've communicated with those feeling thoughts, you may get that confused. So when it sends a signal down and you have a feeling there, what that means is the gut brain is starting to activate. It's trying to get your attention and it's starting to wake up. But if you don't understand those signals, you might get that wrong and think, oh, what this thought has just said, oh, I'm getting a funny feeling in my tummy, so it must be right. And it sends this loop, it goes into this loop of negative thinking. Whereas when you get to a point of the thinking brain sending signals down, it activates your gut brain, and you know how to communicate with that. And you learn how to cultivate your communication with it over a period of time. That, because you're coming down to your soul level and you're engaging with your soul, with your intuitive brain, it can disconnect from the thinking brain because there's so much more going on within there. So when you disconnect from the thinking brain and come to your soul brain, that's where then we can hear what it's communicating with us and what signals it's sending us. And at first, it may speak to us in they're called feeling thoughts, and it may come up in terms of you getting a sense that this might be something that's flagging up to be cautious of, or this is a good feeling. But it's more of a sense that we emit that's emitted through our cells and into our body when we first start communicating with our gut brain. But as we cultivate that over time, it can turn into clear words. And
Yeah.
my experience was it actually spoke to me. So I'd obviously been going there and I'd been sensing for 6 months that something was wrong with me, but all the medics were saying there's nothing showing up. There's nothing showing up. And I remember thinking one day, I wonder if it's emotional. But of course, I didn't have all the know-how and the tools that I have now. And
Yeah.
like Althea said early on in this call, if there's something distressing inside of us, it needs to come out. It will find a way out in the what we call the pain body. And that's the same for emotions and feelings. If they are left untreated and
Yeah.
we don't have a clear understanding of our feelings and emotions, past trauma and all the layers, you know, if it's not getting articulated out, as in talk therapies, and
Yeah.
worked out and bringing peace of mind in, it will
Connected.
look for another way to release itself from the
Yeah.
body.
Now, sometimes I find that people are really stuck in pain or conditions. And on top of that, they are living and breathing a hellish experience of all the distress and the distraught nature of being in awful pain. And what would you say about that? How can somebody, if they're really stuck in one layer of their experience, their physical body,
Mm.
what's going on there? What do you make of that? How does
Well, they're
somebody,
living in the trauma of the past. That's exactly what's happening. So it's keeping those cellular stories awake and alive and playing over. and they may not play over 24/7. It may just even come up in, if you, I often hear people say, I just sat on the loo and all of a sudden this thought came to my mind. When you're in the most relaxed position or laid on the sofa or you get into bed and something comes into the mind, that's because those cellular stories, the memory that's stored in our cells, is sat at the surface, and it's playing over because it's plugged into the most current negative hormones of what the mind is saying. But if you can come away from, there's techniques to do this, that if you can come away from thinking about the mind, and living in the mind space, but that takes a discipline when you're actually in there, because it's the egoic part of the mind, what we call the shadow self, that wants to keep us there, so it can, in these negative hormones, so it can keep us in control, and it can be in the driving seat of our lives. Coming away from that, like I said to you, when I was given that critical time, my head exploded. And even although I had this sea of peace, fortunately, one of the early interventions I was introduced to on a formal basis was meditation, that then eventually led to mindfulness. But when I arrived at meditation, my head, I didn't realize it until I got in there and sat down and it went quiet, that inside my head was screaming. And you couldn't possibly fit any more stories in. It was full to the brim. And I just kept going back and going back and going back. And distress was pouring out of me during those sessions. But I knew I was in a safe place because I'd got guided people who were trained in all sorts of cognitive therapies, who helped me
And
through that time as well. But the
exactly.
meditation was a brilliant help.
And I also teach that meditation is one of the most important helping things you can do. But then, of course, when you meditate, when you tune into your pain, when you tune into those multiple thoughts, overanalyzing thoughts, or whatever it is, or when you meditate, you're actually giving a space for the stuff to release. And that
Right, yeah.
possibly can be really scary. Perhaps you've not meditated before. Perhaps you're
Mm,
scared to go to what's in there. So that can
mm,
be a real freak out. So that's a really important time to at least be aware of it or get support,
mm,
like you had a support network of
mm.
holding the space for you.
Yeah.
Because it's not about fixing anything, is it? It's a state of being. Healing is a state of being. It's not a fix your head or fix your body or fix the pain. That's not that's analytical Western thinking. That's not healing.
Mm,
So when you do meditate, when you do start tuning into your gut, to your thoughts, whatever it is, of course, then you leave it completely open for the stuff you've been holding in there. It starts flying out, and pain can sometimes get worse, which can
mm,
be very disorientating, I think, to people who are not used to this kind of thing, of what happens when
mm.
you start healing.
And that's why I think it's important to be in a trusted space when you're doing that. I mean, the
And
meditation I was,
allowing and
and
allowing
allowing.
if you feel you can, if you're ready to do that, because it's not
It can
easy,
take
isn't it?
time though. It's not
Yeah.
easy. It's not easy. But in my instance, I'd spent 41 years really manufacturing, keeping everything together and all my emotions and feelings locked up. So, of course, I'd worked really hard on that for 41 years because I was trained to survive. I was trained to think. I was trained to go out there and get on with my life. So I'd packed it all up really, really tight.
Pull
And
into your
it's
throat.
that, yeah. But, I just think it's about giving yourself permission to think, I'm just exhausted. For me, I just thought I've just had enough of what's in here. I'm going to sort that out before I go on to. I'm going to clean that out before I go on to create my next life. And I think in when we're in meditation, I think as long as you're in a safe space with a professional who can hold that space and know what to do when or if you broke down, because breaking down is absolutely okay as well, because it's releasing
Good thing.
the trauma what's living within the body. And
Yeah.
meditation, I think, is a lifelong process. It's the most beautiful gift we could possibly give to ourselves, and it's not about emptying the mind, neither. It's not about sitting in silence, because that will never, ever happen,
Yeah.
because the brain functions all the time. So it's not about looking for that. It's just about looking. The purpose of meditation is to turn the volume down of the level of noise that the thoughts bring. And then the discipline around that comes from mindfulness, where there is a set of principles and actions that you can add beyond the meditation, that will bring a different kind of behavior to your life, i.e., doing things on purpose instead of automatic pilot, but mindfulness just brings such a richness to people's lives that wasn't particularly for me and the people I've guided through into being mindful. Once mindfulness seeps into your soul, it never ever leaves. And
Once you
sometimes
know, yeah,
we may leave it and go back up to the thinking brain, but when we arrive here, there's
yeah,
so much distress and disharmony that your soul knows that it wants to bring you back home to yourself, which
there it
is
is. And the beauty of healing is that it's always available to you, always available. Once you learn these different techniques that help you, and then how do you know it's a good thing? Because it just you feel better, it changes you, isn't it? And then you get to, instead of being in a reactionary state of whatever troubles you're feeling, you start to be mindful. And oh, that's, I call it out of alignment. When you're out of alignment, when you're feeling distressed, is it the distressed things to sort out? No, it's not. Oh, perhaps go and meditate.
yeah.
Perhaps that would be a thing to do. So, Dan, are you going to show us
I will.
what are you going to do
Yeah.
with this?
And one last thought before I go into this exercise is just try and, when you have got an overloaded mind, whether it's conflict about yourself or another, the purpose of meditation, the purpose of mindfulness, the purpose of defragging the mind, I think is about differentiating between learning to differentiate between what belongs to us, what truly, truly we need, and what belongs to us, whether that's ownership of a thought or an experience that's happened, and what belongs to the other, and what the reality of this situation really is. And meditation, because it quietens the volume down of the level of noise that the thoughts bring, that's where the gap comes in, that space that Althea was talking about, where things can come up. But once it comes up, it's up. And it may be a little bit scary at first, but when it comes up, you can't pack it down. And there's only one way for it to go, and that's to release it out of the body. So even if you talked to yourself or to someone else about what's just happened, invariably I'll say to clients, what just happened? What thought did you just hear? And if they pause for a second, I go, I don't want the second one, what the mind's telling you, give me the first one, because that's what's important. And as soon as it's voiced, then your energy and your cellular system feels different. So just be mindful of being able to start to learn about differentiating between what's rightfully yours and what isn't, perhaps what the mind's made up or what the mind's exacerbated about an external situation. And also when we've got trauma that we're carrying inside and it's left, or it's taken a lot longer, or in deep-seated trauma, as humans are brilliant at burying things, but it will rise only when we're ready to start that healing process. But where it's been left to ruminate for 1 or 2 years or more, it starts to become what we call complicated, and it can add other stories to it, and other experiences we've had in life can attach itself to the initial trauma. So it's building a story and attaching all these stories and energies to the initial trauma, so it can become confusing. So when the thoughts come up, this is when people can get disorientated, thinking, well, what is this? And it's worse than what I thought, because you think you're thinking something else, but it's another experience that's attached to it. And meditation will help with that. Okay, so just let me get to my slides, because I'm not going to go through, we've covered a lot, some of what were on these slides. So yeah, I think, just bear with me a second. I'm just working my way right down, but we're nearly there. Okay.
You're going to share a screen, Dan?
I am, just bear with me. I'm going to share my screen. It's quite an extensive slide. I didn't realize we'd be interacting as much as what we are. This has been brilliant podcast. But normally I'd just work through the whole screen, but it's nearly 1 hour long. So I'm about a moment away from sharing my screen.
Just
Bear
while she's
with me.
sorting herself out there, I mean, I didn't start meditating until I was 30, and I knew
Mm,
that I didn't want to go there. I was much more comfortable. I was much happier to give it all out, give my love. I used to do hands-on body work for years, and I
yeah,
loved helping people and the intellect of all that bit's a bit stuck, and then that stress and that family thing and that the other, getting into someone's story.
yeah.
Um, does it matter if Berechio is saying, does it matter if you do guided meditation or is it your own, is it on your own is better?
Well, I think in my experience, I think guided meditation is is more suitable initially. And in that a mix of guided and silent meditation, in that process, the more traumatized people are, the more trauma that they're holding in the body, because they do go off to the thinking brain, and that's where they tend to just keep going off to. Whereas guided meditation can help keep us on track. So it's not guided, it's not just silent meditation, it's whatever works for you. But in my experience, I think guided meditation can help keep us on that track. So yeah. And you like guided, so you only need to listen. That's right. And if that works for you, that's what will be your guide. So do continue with that. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and take you through these slides. You may want to put your screens off or keep them on. Okay, I'm aware of the time. And when I've worked through this, there's no expectation for anyone to share their experience whatsoever. Okay, however, if you want to feel free to share your experience at the end. I'll open up for Q&A, or if there's any other questions that you'd like to ask, or if there's anything beyond this evening, just reach out and get in touch. But like you've heard me speak about our three brains, when we have them working in unison, this allows us to create possibilities. And humans are
Diane,
actually, yeah,
Diane, do you want to hit the what do you call it, reel or down the bottom left, bottom right, sorry, there's a little screen, little tiny screen thing. If you hit that, it'll show display. If it's at the bottom of of your page you're sharing, that's it.
that one, that one.
That's the
Can you
one.
see it
There you go.
now?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. Okay, so by utilizing, cultivating the use of all of our three brains, and I refer to it as upside down thinking, because the most important brain is our gut brain, which is at the seat of our soul. So that's where I train people to start thinking from, and then work the way up to their emotional brain, which is in the heart space before we even go here. But it allows us to create new possibilities, and humans are actually really, really good at creating change, at finding a place to put the stuff that's caused us upset, the stuff that causes us unrest, and also the traumas that we've lived as well. Because it's not about erasing anything. You know, we are actually superhuman. So it's not about erasing anything. It's about finding a place for these past hurts and experiences that we've had so we can reframe and go on to living the best life that we possibly can day by day. And sometimes the old stuff comes back, but then we can place it again by cultivating the three brains. And by doing so, it allows us that sense of taking back control. And this is based on difficult situations and the negative thoughts. So difficult situations that we've already lived and negative thoughts that the mind keeps reinforcing. Okay, so if you want to, this is an exercise I'm going to train you, and you can do this absolutely anywhere. If you want to just sit, if you can, if for those of you laid down, if you choose to stay laid down, just cross your feet over. So both of your feet have got contact with the vessel beneath you, the bed or the sofa. If you sat up, just pop yourself in this position, and it's called the whole brain posture. So if you just cross your feet over so that the sides of your feet have got contact with the floor. And then when you're crossing your wrists, how you do that is you just lay your wrists on top of your wrists, like so. And then you bring the palms of your hands, you bring the palms of your hands together and just let your fingers slide in with each other. And then you can either rest your hands down on your thighs, or you can turn them upside down and rest them on your chest. So the purpose of the whole brain posture is to reduce stress and anxiety. And it works. Okay, so like I said to you, we are electrical conduits. We have two hemispheres to the brain. Okay, and when we're suffering with stress and anxiety, and I say suffering because that's what this is, the hemispheres split apart and it creates a vortex down the center. And where we're living in stresses and anxiety, and each hemisphere, the left and the right hemisphere, split away, the stress and the anxiety continue to live on in that vortex, that conduit down the center. By sitting in this whole brain posture, it allows both hemispheres of the brain to come back together. Okay. Now, this seated position, you can actually do it standing. If you put the kettle on to make a drink, you could stand in your kitchen, just cross your wrists, cross your feet over, as long as you're supported. Or you could do it while you're out having a coffee with a friend, or nobody needs to know what you're doing, but it's a brilliant self-care tool. Okay. So, and what this does is it helps rewire the circuitry of the mind. So when we get stressed and anxiety, full of anxiousness, and we get to a point where sometimes we can't string a thought together, or we forget what we were thinking, and a thought seem broken, and one thing attaches to a story over here. And you imagine all that as an electrical circuit, right? And what's seated in the whole brain posture, it starts gently disconnecting the circuitry that's no longer required, and it starts to plug in the circuitry that needs plugging back into the sockets. And then the old sockets that's blown a fuse, and these stories that's come up from a long time ago, it can even discard them and just lay them in a place of rest. So it brings you to a state of peace and settlement. Okay, so I'm just going to take you through a very light and a quick exercise to reduce stress and anxiety down. Okay, so while you're seated in this position, I want you to just close your eyes. And if at any point you feel as though you become conscious and all of a sudden you think, oh, I've got to release my hands, or I've got to release my feet, that means that the circuitry is rewired for that purpose. You can always go back in and do it later again. Okay, but for tonight's experience, I'm going to take you through a process of reducing stress and anxiety. So just gently close your eyes and just breathe at a pace that's comfortable for you. And let's give ourselves permission to set the intention to balance and transform any trauma or distress, past, present, or future, into a state of peace and non-attachment. And with this, for this purpose this evening, I don't want you to go into something that may have caused you lots of trauma, lots of deep-seated hurt. Just pick something lighter, maybe a little fracas you may have had with a family or somebody at work. You might have just got a little bit edgy about it. Pick something that's niggling you, not something that's really traumatizing you. And that's only for the purpose of being in this group setting tonight. Okay. So I want you to just remember and imagine a situation that's caused you some distress, something that's just off and not quite sitting comfortably with you. Maybe multiple people involved in it, or just one person. So just while you're seated calmly and you're breathing at a pace that's comfortable for you, just allow this scenario to just come up into the mind's eye, and just imagine having a TV screen about 2 or 3 feet in front of your face, and let this play over on that screen. Okay. So just let that emerge. So you're witnessing what's happening in this situation. You're not engaging with it right now. This is a time to witness. Okay. And the stress that was involved in that, just imagine seeing how you've been affected with that stress. Let it play over on the TV screen. Any words that people are saying, their dialogue, just let all that play over. How they look, how many people are there. You might even want to look at what they're wearing, just bring it all in. And what place you were in when these stressful situation took place as well. Okay. So just allow that to continue to play over. And with your eyes closed, now is the time just to remain concentrated on this particular situation, all facets of it, until you experience a mental, emotional, or a physical change in your perception of that situation. Okay? And it may take a few minutes to do this, to experience that, but you're looking to feel some sort of disconnect in your perception to that situation. And then when you do, then you can open your eyes. But you've got all the time you need to do this. And just be aware as well that going through this, it can raise distress or some emotions through this before it releases and transforms into a state of peace and non-attachment regarding that situation. So just give yourself permission if that does come through. You're doing just fine. And it may be that if you're feeling any sensations within the body, or you're feeling as though your body's moving, just try to witness it rather than engage with it, because it's the energy that's moving and balancing within your system. Okay. And for this short exercise this evening, if you want to just gently prepare yourself to come back to this space, and when you're ready, just open your eyes. Might want to release your hands and pop both your feet flat on the floor. Okay. Okay. What I want you to do is I want you to think about the best feeling that took place for you in that experience. Okay. So now just put all your fingertips together and just look down that central vortex of your fingertips. So you can lower your hand down if you want, but just keep your eyes open and stay focused on the best feeling that took place for you in that exchange. Just stay focused on the best feeling. And now with your eyes closed, continue to focus on the best feeling that took place for you. And just gently open your eyes and release your fingers. Just make sure both your feet are flat on the floor. I'm just going to stop sharing for a moment. Okay. Is everybody okay? Are we all back here? Yeah. Is there anything anybody would like to share on that? Maybe about your experience or just to name the feeling that took place for you? If you do, just unmute yourself. Hi, Brigitte.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, my experience was I had a recent little conflict with my neighbor. And that was due because I decided to speak up about something. And it created, and that's a fear of me to, I avoid conflicts. It's all trauma related, but that's maybe for now besides the point. But it's I did that, and it did create a bit of a negative energy at the time, because some things were said that weren't all that nice. I think we resolved it as adults, but things are not quite okay. My energy towards her has changed a bit. And right now, doing this exercise, I kind of felt, do I need to change? I felt nervousness, like nerves here, and a lot of sighing going on.
Yeah.
A lot of sighing. And also what came to me was a sense of, no, you've done well. Maybe there have been created some negativity because of me speaking up, but the whole speaking up itself, well done.
Yeah, excellent.
Nothing much has changed with the contact with me and her. I think I'm just again been reassured that it's sometimes good to take distance and realize I am me, she is her. I've said what I had to say. I might have been a bit tough as well on what I said, and maybe it wasn't all. I mean, where two people fight, two people are to blame. Isn't that a saying? And I'm not a native English speaker, as you can hear, maybe. But in Dutch, we have a saying that says, where two are fighting, two are at fault.
Yeah.
So that's the saying. That's, I think, also, but the fact that I had, because I was so nervous at the time as well of speaking up, I can feel it in me, like my heart is pounding, and it's like the whole heart chakra is out of balance. And
so because that's your emotional home. So when you were thinking about it and your heart was pounding, like I said earlier, positive or negative, it can change the rhythm because the emotions are coming to the surface. So when I asked you to focus at the end on that, of the best feeling that took place for you in that, what was the best feeling? Could you name that?
It's okay.
Well done. Okay.
It's
Fantastic.
okay,
It's
well
like
done. You can be a
satisfaction.
bit proud even, maybe. But you know what it is, Diane? I am the world's biggest overanalyzer. So even while I'm doing these exercises, I am thinking about it. So I always wonder, is it my brain that is now drawing conclusions, or is that really what happened?
Well, a great question, because when we're coming from a thinking brain, when we're coming from an analytical brain and overthinking, which is what we've all been trained to do, when we first start doing anything new, we have to learn how to do that. And it's about cultivating the experience of doing something new. It's absolutely normal for you to go back to your thinking brain because that's the default. And also the egoic part of the brain has sensed that you're going somewhere else for the answers. Okay, so you've experienced the emotions coming to the surface from that pounding to the feeling proud and almost like a satisfied that you've done well. And also you said you got a sense of like this feeling thought. So both you've activated both your other brains. Okay. But the thinking brain will also know that you've gone elsewhere. You've left the building and you've gone within for your answers. And it's then gone, oh, but if Bridget does this, I'll lose control over Bridget. So it wants you to come back to the thinking brain. So the more you practice it, the more streamlined it will become. But don't let the thoughts get in your way. Just what I tend to recommend to my clients when the thoughts kick in, just acknowledge that it's there and just bring your attention, your focus back to the practice at hand, whether that's guided meditation or this exercise when you come back to repeat this. And when you see and hear thoughts, just acknowledge that it's there, but then return your focus. And if your attention goes straight back to a thought, that's okay. It's not about engaging with it. You're just acknowledging that it's there and coming back, and you're taming That's the way that we tame the control that the mind has over us.
Yeah. And the nervous feeling, that is something that happens more often. When I feel like I might have to speak up or stick up for myself, or because that's been a bit of an issue all my life, being put down and not allowed to.
Well, you can change that cellular
nerves.
story, and that's about finding your voice. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because if you had your voice metaphorically taken away from you, you weren't allowed to speak, and it was hampered, then that does bring trepidation, doesn't it? And almost like a fear factor. So that's the emotion that's attached to you when you choose to think, I have to say something here. So it brings the emotion that's attached to that. But that story can be rewritten. That can be rewritten at a cellular level with Change Your Mind, Change Your Life, the work that I do. And also you might find through meditation, although meditation and mindfulness is absolutely incredible, it's a much slower process for it to seep into the system. If you're looking for change to happen sort of now, and a quick process of change, then a deeper intervention at a cellular level, such as Change Your Mind, Change Your Life, will support that.
Yeah.
Okay. But I'll happily have a clarity call with you. No obligation, but if you
what
want
does
to
that
talk,
mean, a clarity call? Just like a Zoom?
a one-to-one private Zoom call between the two of us. I offer them complimentary to anyone, and I think that's always healthy to come together and have a one-to-one, and then you're in a position to decide whether you want to go on and do any other work or not. I mean, I'm not here particularly selling myself tonight. It's not about that. It's about sharing some tools, and there's other tools. If Althea wants me to come on at a later date, there's other tools that I can share with you through a podcast for free as well. So
Oh, I was wondering, because I wasn't sure about the word complimentary in this case, what that meant.
It means free.
Yeah, just like Althea did as well before
charge.
I went to just a chat on Zoom to see,
to hone in on things that what's troubling you, and is there a way that I can help you?
You've
got more choices.
Yeah, do you then need to know, like, because what I meant with multi-layered is more than one trauma-related event, or
not necessarily.
Not that I don't want to share, but it's so much that it takes up so much time, and I don't know.
It's painful. Because we're working at cellular level. So I would ask a series of questions. Don't even need to know all the detail, because your soul, if it's ready to heal at a deeper level, your soul will bring that to the foreground, regardless of what you've said to me. So we're connecting at a soul.
So you just kind of go with the flow in that conversation. Don't even prepare. Just see what comes up while you are asking questions.
Well, in the clarity call, we'll go with the flow. But if we went on to do some specific work together, it's a little bit different. But it's not talk therapy, because we're working at cellular level.
Yeah.
So even if you admitted you did, because it's too painful bringing up all these stories, it's waking all the cells up all the time. So sometimes we can just put a synopsis around it. You could say a synopsis around it, or even avoid it altogether. But sometimes if people avoid it altogether, your soul will tell me that is this relative to you, and so it's giving you permission to go there. So it seems a very fluid, it's a very kind, it's a very gentle approach, and pain-free.
Well, thank you very much for this experience, and I'll have a think.
You're welcome.
I'll have a think about it.
You're welcome. I'd just before, because I know we're coming to the end of it, Eleanor, would you like to add anything there? Or are you comfortable with your experience that you had this evening? Because I did notice that your body was moving quite a lot through that exercise. Don't know if there's anything you want to share, or wait a minute, you'll have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I was moving because I've got a pain in my knee, and I have to shift positions.
Your attention was going there. Yeah,
it helps to shift positions.
Yeah, phenomenal. Well, you're in the right space, because I can endorse Althea's pain-free method. It is amazing. Well, thank you for being here, all of you, this evening. And yeah, and like I said, if there's anything else you want me to share at a later date, Althea, I'm open to that. So
Absolutely. And so we'll have a chat. But meanwhile, Diane, thank you so much for taking us through that. And even that simple little exercise, just a few minutes, I felt shifts too, a little release of tension in a muscle. I could feel it just ping. And so thank you so much for taking us through that. And if anybody does feel this is resonating with you, then do get in touch with Diane. I'm going to put the details with the recording, so you'll have everything to connect with her and book
yeah,
a free complimentary
yeah.
chat. And get yourself sorted out. You know, I don't believe we're here to suffer. I don't believe we are. There's so many different ways, and Diane has a way to help you. And Diane's extremely resourceful, very able lady, and you're in good hands if you do go forward. But book a free chat and then take yourselves from there. Thank you so much for joining us, Diane, sharing this wonderful knowledge and guidance. And thank you so much for
Oh,
everybody for joining us this evening. Thank you, Diane.
it's been my pleasure. I'll see you again soon.